Hey everyone, how are you doing? Welcome to the channel. I thought I'd go back to 2023 today and take a look at my reading goals and how I did against them. So each year I set myself a series of reading goals. It normally consists of a few categories, and within those categories there'll be a number of books. Quite simple really. For 2023 I had 4 categories that I wanted to read books from. These were series I wanted to continue and potentially finish, series I wanted to start, new releases, and some self-pub to try as well. A different number of books in each of those categories, and with the series to continue or finish there were 2 different ways of looking at it. So there were 7 series, but in total if I was to finish all of those that would give me 15 books. So what I'm going to do today is run through all of the different categories, the different books that made up my reading goals within each of those categories, see which ones I managed to read and what that means for the numbers at the end of it. So we'll start off with the series that I want to continue or finish. So as I say, there were 7 series within this list. We had The Reborn Empire by Devin Madsen. There were 2 books left in this series, so it's a 4-book series I'd read to, and I had We Cry for Blood and We Dream of Gods left in that series. Second series was The Last War by Mike Shackle. This one I'd read the first book, which was We Are the Dead, and I had the second book of Fool's Hope and the third book Until the Last ready to go. The third series is Pillars of Peace by Tom Dumbrell. I'd read the first book in this one as well, so that was The Look of a King, and I had No Place for Peace and Where Heroes Were Born left. We then have The God King Chronicles by Mike Brooks. Again, a trilogy where I'd read the first book, which was The Black Coast, so I had The Splinter King and The Godbreaker left in this one. The next one was The War Eternal by Rob J. Hayes. This one's a 5-book series. I'd read the first 3, so I had Sins of a Mother, book 4, and Death's Beating Heart, book 5, left in this series. And then we have Emaneska by Ben Gelly. This one was a 4-book series. I'd read the first book in this one, which was The Written, so I had Pale Kings, and then Dead Stars Part 1 and Part 2 to make up the next 3 books of the series. And then finally we had the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. I'd read 2 books in this one, so again for what we've got available at the moment that gave me 2 books remaining. So we had Oathbringer and Rhythm of War left to go. So starting off, I did pretty well in this one. I didn't complete all of the books and I didn't complete all of the series kind of marks. I didn't get to finish or continue all of these series. So starting off from the top with A Reborn Empire, I didn't get to this one at all. There's no reason for it. I never felt it was the right time. I had different books that I wanted to read. I did set myself this one as part of my December TBR to kind of finish off or aim to finish off the reading goals, but I just didn't get round to it because the month kind of got away from me pretty much. So Reborn Empire starts us off with a bit of a downside. Everything else though I did pretty well with. So I finished both books of The Last War, I finished both books of The Pillars of Peace and of The God King Chronicles. I also finished the 2 remaining books of The War Eternal, the 3 remaining books of Emaneska, and I did one of the 2 books from the Stormlight Archive. So in total I had 12 books out of the 15 that were available here, giving me 6 of the 7 series that I did continue with, and 5 of those that I actually finished. So I think this was, regardless of how I look at it, it was a pretty good win. Moving on then to the series that I wanted to start. So these were supposed to be books that were part of my physical TBR. So I had book 1 on my shelf and I wanted to get to them. After I put them together, I realised that one of them randomly I don't actually own a copy of. I'm not sure how it got into my head that it was a physical book, part of my physical TBR. But there we go. That one was Legacy of the Mercenary Kings by Nick Martell. This was the Kingdom of Liars. We also had Articles of Faith by David Ragg. This had the Black Hawks as book 1. Dragons of Terror by Brian Naslund, which started off with Blood of an Exile. I then had Legacy of Ash by Matthew Ward, which is book 1 of the Legacy trilogy. Shards of Earth by Adrian Tchaikovsky to kick off the final architecture. And The Lotlands by Jonathan French, starting off with The Grey Bastards. This one was kind of hit and miss for me, so I did well overall, But it depends on how you look at it, because if we're looking at books that I finished, I only had a 50% success rate here. I only finished 3 of the books that are in this list. So they were The Grey Bastards, The Legacy of Ash, and Blood of an Exile. I then had 2 others that I started but actually DNF'd. So The Blackhawks and Kingdom of Liars turned out not to be for me for whatever reason. If you really wanted to, you can go back through my wrap-up videos where I do discuss all of the books that I read, including any that I DNF. And then finally we've got Shards of Earth. Now this one was kind of deliberately missed off because I'm doing a sci-fi buddy read, or a series of sci-fi buddy reads, and I moved this one across to 2024's plan because we scheduled it in for January. And at the time of filming, one of the books that I'm currently reading is Shards of Earth. So a 50% completion rate of the books in this category, but 83% if you look at it, 5 books out of 6 that I actually did start from the books that were originally on the plan. So I think that one's, again, not too bad going. Into the new releases, and this one often does tend to be one of the easier ones because I will often receive review copies of these arcs that I want to read, rate and review within a good time frame, sort of just before they're released. So I generally do have a good success rate on here. The books that I had in here, there were 5 of them. 2 were carried over actually, because they were originally expected to be released in 2022 but came out in 2023. These were Of War and Ruin by Ryan Carhill and Age-All Sin by Daniel T. Jackson. I also had The Shadowgate by L.L. McRae, A Shade of Madness by Thiago Abdallah, and The Shadow Casket by Chris Wooding. So I did read all 5 of these. As I say, I got review copies of, I had review copies of all 5 of them and actually read them all as they were coming out. So a really good success rate, as I generally do have with a new release category if I set one. And then we have the 10 self-published books that I wanted to try as well. So with these ones, again, maybe hit and miss, we'll see. But the 10 books that I had were all either standalones or book one in a series because they were self-pub series or books that I wanted to try. These were not series continuations. So we started off with Wolf Eater by Anthony Mitchell. I had Marauder by L.L. McRae, Ascendant by Michael R. Miller, Obsidian Awakening by Sienna Frost, A Realm of Stones and Whispers by Ginevra Mancinelli, The Worthy by Anna K. Moss, Blackstone Heart by Michael R. Fletcher, Iron Truth by S. A. Folin, Queens of Weird by Tamandra Whitecastle, and An Ocean of Others by Joshua Scott Edwards. So with this one, as I say, maybe a little bit hit and miss. I did first of all finish 8 of the books on here, but I did actually start all 10 of them. So A Realm of Stones and Whispers and The Worthy were both DNFs. I just didn't get on with them for whatever reason and wasn't able to finish them, so I did put those down. So that's an 80% completion rate, but actually 100% in terms of the books that I started. So I think, again, this is another category that I did really well in. So in total for the year, from the reading plan, that gave me 36 books if you look at all of the books that were included within those series continuations if I was to finish them. If you look at just the original books that were on the plan though, so just the next book in the series for the series continuations, that gave me 28 books in total. I DNF'd 4 of those, so that's a 14% ratio. Obviously if you include the additional books to take it to the 36, then the percentage for DNFing does go down a little bit, but I didn't calculate that one. So in terms of the overall success rate, let's have a look at it. Looking at the total number of books, so the 36 books that would have completed everything across the board in all of these categories. I started off with the series that I wanted to continue, so there were 15 books in that category and I read 12 of them. In the series to start, there were 6. I moved one across to 2024, but still counting that one in this reading plan, I read 5 of the 6. For the new releases and the self-pub, as with the 2022 plan, I did really well with these with 100% completion. I read 5 out of 5 of the new releases and 10 out of 10 of the self-published books on the list, with that caveat of the DNFs included within there. So with all of the books across the board on this plan, that was 36 in total. and I read 32 of those, with one of the remaining books being carried over, as I've mentioned a few times now. So that gives me a completion rate of 89%, which I'm really happy with. If I was to compare this to the previous wrap-up, this is the review of my 2022 reading plan, I had very similar numbers across the board. I had 37 books, so one more book in total on the plan. I read, again, one more, so 33 books in total, which gives me, with rounding at least, the same completion rate of 89%. So I'm really happy with how that worked out. With 89%, again, I think is a really good ballpark for the reading plan as a whole. It shows that I've been able to set myself goals for books that I want to read, because there weren't really any. Maybe just one series that I didn't get round to because it didn't call my name enough, I guess, over the course of the year. Even though I DNF'd 4 of these books, I had a really good experience across the board. There were some really great books overall, some really great series that I finished off as well, which I'm really happy to have got to and completed. So I think as far as the overall plan, the reading plan for 2023, I think I can pretty much describe it as a roaring success. So there we go anyway, that's my hopefully not too long look at my 2023 reading goals. How did you do against the reading goals you set? Let me know down in the comments. I'll hopefully catch you in the next video sometime soon. Until then, as always, take care of yourselves, read some good books. Bye for now.